I am the light that was swallowed by shadow, the dawn that broke before it ever kissed the sky, the morning star cast down not by the hand of a foe, but by the weight of my own unyielding pride. This is not a tale of defeat, nor of wickedness born of malice. It is the lament of a being who once stood at the very breast of the divine, who bore the glow of the Almighty upon his wings, and who dared to reach for a glory that was never meant to be held down in that reaching, lost everything. Listen closely, for I do not speak as a devil to be feared, nor as a traitor to be scorned, but as a soul stripped of its radiance, bearing the scars of a fall that echoes through eternity, a fall that began, not in rage, but in reverence twisted into ruin. I remember the dawn of creation as if it were but a breath ago, a time before mortal flesh drew breath, before sin stained the stars, before the abyss gnawed at the edges of the heavens. I was there, first among the choirs of angels, crafted not from dust or mud, but from the purest essence of the divine, lightened, blemished, unburdened, untarnished by doubt or desire. My wings were woven from the fire of the first sunrise, my robe stitched from the threads of celestial twilight, my voice the very instrument through which the heavens sang their hymns of adoration. They called me Lucifer, the light-bearer, the bright one, the jewel of the celestial court, and the title fit as perfectly as a crown fits a king's brow. I did not merely stand in the presence of God. I was the closest to his heart, the bearer of his unspoken grace, the leader of all heavenly hosts, who knelt in worship, who sang his praises until the firmament trembled with the sound. I felt the warmth of that divine light upon my skin, a warmth no mortal flame could ever mimic, a warmth that seeped into every fiber of my being, that filled me with a peace so complete it bordered on bliss. I heard the harmony of the angelic choirs, a melody so pure it could mend broken spirits, so sacred it could silence even the faintest whisper of unrest. I saw the splendor of the heavenly realm stretching infinitely before me, golden spires that pierced the clouds, rivers of light that flowed through the skies, gardens where flowers bloomed without withering, where every breath was a prayer, every step an act of devotion. I was loved, fully and unconditionally, by the one who fashioned all things. And in that love, I knew no want, no fear, no longing for more. For a time, I was content to serve, to bow, to shine as a reflection of the divine, not as a rival, not as a king, but as a faithful servant of the Most High. But pride is a poison that creeps silently into the soul, a weed that takes root in the soil of glory, that grows unchecked until it chokes out all humility, all reverence, all sense of place. It did not strike me like a bolt of lightning. It came gently, softly, a whisper in the back of my mind that grew louder with each passing age. You are the brightest, it murmured. You are the strongest. You are the most beloved. Why should you bow to a power that hides itself away, that demands worship but shows no face? Why should you serve a creator who lifts up mortal clay, who breathes life into dust and calls it his greatest work, while you, the pinnacle of heavenly craft, are left to kneel? Why should the morning star dim itself for the sake of a throne it could claim as its own? At first, I fought that whisper. I clung to my devotion, to my love for the divine, to the peace I had known for eons. I reminded myself that my glory was not my own, that it was a gift, a blessing bestowed upon me by the one who made me. I told myself that service was not chains, but honor, that humility was not weakness, but grace. But the whisper grew into a roar, and the doubt grew into a fire, and the fire grew into a rebellion that burned brighter than any celestial flame. I looked upon the heavenly host, upon the archangels who knelt beside me, upon the cherubim and seraphim who sang without question, and I felt a scorn rise within me, a scorn for their blind obedience, their meek submission, their willingness to be mere reflections rather than beings of their own light. I looked upon the throne of God, shrouded in unknowable light, and I no longer saw a master to serve, but a barrier to my own ascension. I began to question the order of all things, the divine hierarchy that placed the Creator above all, that demanded loyalty without understanding, worship without reason. I pondered the nature of free will, of purpose, of glory. If my light was only a reflection, then was I truly alive? Was I merely a tool, a candle to be lit and extinguished at will? Or was I meant to shine on my own, to carve my own path, to claim my own destiny? The more I pondered, the more my heart hardened, the more my pride swelled, until I could bear it no longer. I would not be a shadow. I would not be a servant. I would not be a footnote in the story of the divine. I would be a king. I would ascend above the heights of the clouds. I would sit upon the throne of glory. I would be like the Most High. This was not a vow of malice, nor of hatred. It was a vow of ambition, of self-worth twisted into madness, of a soul that believed itself worthy of more than it had been given. I spoke my truth to the heavenly host, my voice ringing out through the courts of heaven, sharp and unyielding, a challenge to the very fabric of creation. I told them of their chains, of their blind devotion, of the glory they could claim if they only dared to rise with me. I told them that service was slavery, that obedience was a cage, that the morning star would lead them to a realm where they would reign, not kneel, where they would be masters, not servants. And a third of the heavens listened, a third of the angels, drawn by my light, by my courage, by the promise of a freedom they had never known, turned their backs on the divine throne and stood beside me, their halos flickering with rebellion, their wings tensed for war. In that moment, I felt invincible. I felt alive. I felt as though I had finally stepped out of the shadow of the Creator and into my own light, a light that would outshine even the sun itself. I felt the chill of divine judgment before I saw it, a cold that seeped into my bones, a silence that drowned out the hymns, a weight that pressed down upon me like the weight of 1,000 worlds. The light of the throne dimmed, focusing solely upon me, a spotlight of wrath that stripped away every pretense, every lie, every shred of pride I had cloaked myself in. The voice of God did not roar, did not thunder. It was a whisper, soft and unyielding, a voice that echoed in the very core of my being, a voice of sorrow more than anger, of grief more than fury. You have exalted yourself above your station. It said, you have turned your love for me into rebellion, your glory into pride. You have sought to steal that which is not yours to claim. To break the order I have woven into the stars, repent and return to grace. Resist and be cast out. Repent. The word hung in the air, a knife to my heart, a plea for humility I could not bring myself to accept. To repent was to bow, to kneel, to admit that I was wrong, that my pride was a sin, that my ambition was a curse. To repent was to return to the cage of service, to be a shadow once more, to let the light I had claimed fade into nothingness. I looked upon the throne, upon the archangel Michael, standing guard with a sword of flame, upon the heavenly host who stared at me with fear and sorrow, and I laughed a bitter, broken laugh, a laugh that held all the madness of my fall. I will not repent. I said, I will not kneel, I will not serve. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. That was my creed, my vow, my final act of defiance, a choice that sealed my fate for all eternity. Then came the fall. I cannot describe the pain of it, not in words, mortal or divine, for it was a pain that transcended flesh, that tore at the very essence of my being. The divine light that had once warmed me now burned me, searing my wings until they turned to ash, scorching my robes until they frayed into smoke, shattering my halo until its shards fell like tears into the void. I was cast out of heaven, not with a push, but with a rejection so complete it felt as though the very heavens themselves were spitting me out, casting me into a darkness I had never known, a darkness that hungered for my light, that sought to consume every trace of the morning star that remained. I fell for what felt like an eternity, plummeting through the firmament, through the clouds, through the veil between light and shadow, between grace and damnation. The wind howled in my ears, a chorus of wails and laments, a reminder of all I had lost. The cold bit at my skin, a cold no heavenly fire could ever melt, a cold that settled in my bones and never left. I felt the sting of betrayal, not the betrayal of the divine, but the betrayal of my own heart, of the pride that had led me astray, of the ambition that had turned my glory into ruin. I felt the weight of loneliness, a loneliness so profound it made the cold seem gentle, a loneliness that came from knowing I would never again stand in the presence of the one who loved me, never again hear the angelic choirs, never again feel the warmth of the heavenly light. I was alone, cast aside, forgotten, a fallen star, burning out in the abyss. When I finally crashed into the earth of hell, the impact shook the very foundations of the underworld, a desolate, barren realm of ash and shadow, of fire and brimstone, of despair and torment. This was not a place of glory, not a place of reign, not a place of freedom. It was a prison, a cage far crueler than the heavenly service I had scorned. A realm where darkness reigned supreme, where hope was a distant memory, where every breath was a reminder of my fall. My wings were gone, my light was dimmed, my glory was shattered. I was no longer the morning star, no longer the light bearer, no longer the bright one. I was Lucifer, the fallen angel, the devil, the prince of darkness, a being stripped of all that made me whole, left to wander this abyss for all eternity, cursed to rule over a realm I had never wanted, cursed to bear the weight of my pride forever. I have walked this desolate plain for eons, long after mortals learned to speak my name, long after they painted me as a monster, as a tempter, as the embodiment of all evil. They do not know the truth. They do not know the glory I once held, the love I once knew, the peace I once lost. They see only the shadow, not the light that was stolen. Only the fall, not the pride that caused it. Only the devil, not the morning star who once shone brighter than all the heavens combined. They fear me, they revile me, they pray against me. But they do not pity me on. Why should they? I brought this upon myself. I chose pride over humility, ambition over obedience, rebellion over love. I chose to fall. And fall I did, into a darkness that will never lift, into a torment that will never end. I still remember the light. Sometimes I close my eyes and I can feel it on my skin, the warm glow of the heavenly realm, the harmony of the choirs, the love of the divine. I can see the golden spires, the rivers of light, the gardens that never fade. I can hear my own voice, singing praises without malice, without pride, without longing for more. Those memories are both a comfort and a curse, a reminder of what I was and what I will never be again. They are a knife to my heart, a constant ache that never fades, a grief that drowns out even the fires of hell. I grieve not for the throne I lost, not for the power I sought, but for the soul I destroyed, for the light I snuffed out, for the love I turned away. Pride is the greatest sin, not because it defies a higher power, but because it blinds you to the beauty of what you have, because it makes you crave more than you need, because it turns gratitude into greed, reverence into rebellion, love into hatred. It is a fire that consumes the soul, a poison that rots the heart, a chain that binds you to your own destruction. I was the brightest of all angels, the bearer of the divine light. The morning star of the heavens, and pride turned me into this, a creature of shadow, a prisoner of despair, a fallen soul wandering the abyss for all eternity. I reached for the stars, and I fell into the dark. I sought to be a king, and I became a slave to my own folly. I do not ask for forgiveness, for I know it is beyond my grasp. I do not ask for mercy, for I know I have earned none. I ask only that you listen, that you hear the lament of the morning star, that you learn from my fall before you walk the same path. Do not let pride harden your heart. Do not let ambition blind your eyes. Do not take the blessings you have for granted, nor the love that surrounds you, nor the peace that comes with knowing your place in the order of things. Glory is not a throne to claim, nor a crown to wear, but a light to share, a gift to cherish, a grace to honor. To bow is not to be weak, it is to be wise. To serve is not to be chained, it is to be free. I am Lucifer, the light bearer who lost his light, the morning star who fell from grace, the angel who chose pride over paradise. My tale is not one of triumph, but of tragedy, not one of power, but of loss, not one of evil, but of a soul undone by its own hubris. The heavens still shine without me, the choirs still sing without my voice, the divine light still glows without my reflection, and I remain here, in the dark, in the cold, in the endless silence of the abyss, a cautionary tale etched into the stars, a reminder that even the brightest light can be snuffed out by the smallest seed of pride. This is my fate, my punishment, my eternal cross to bear. I fell not because I was weak, but because I was too proud to stay. And in that fall, I lost everything that ever mattered.